Kia ora. It's been a hot minute since I did a solo conversation. I feel like there's been a lot going on recently and felt like an amazing opportunity to kind of drop in some of these things that I'm experiencing and realizing. And, I was like, oh, maybe I should write a list of all these things that I've been learning and understanding and embodying. And then I realized that if I wrote the list, then it means that it's just knowledge, right? It's just unembodied wisdom. I'm just, um, you know, doing something that everyone else does. I'm just uh, reappropriating these ideas in the hope that uh, maybe you'll acknowledge me and see me in a particular way because I have some sort of wisdom that I can share with you. But unless it's embodied, then it doesn't really matter. So yeah, there's no list. It's just a I guess a one-sided conversation about what I'm experiencing at the moment. Just been a lot. There's for those who are interested in astrology, we've just kind of stepped out of a big portal, I guess is the best way to describe it. Lots of transformations and growths and things fading away and new things arising and just noticing the way in which it is brought to light, the way I show up, and offered me some perspectives which have allowed me to see my world from a different view. We talk about the idea of wisdom versus knowledge, and I was making myself a nice cup of cacao to sit and have this conversation with, and the amount of times that I've sold people cacao and said to them, just keep an eye on it, it'll boil over really easy, like you got to really watch it. And they come back to me a few months later and say, oh yeah, I made a huge mess in my kitchen, like you were right. And I think so often we hear these ideas, but it's not till we are able to put them into our physical understanding and embody them that we see the true value in them. I remember when my first experience doing plant medicines, that was a big realization. Like all these things that I'd been told, I've read a lot of esoteric books and listened to oodles of podcasts and understood all these ideas on the mental plane, but it wasn't until I experienced the information being perceived in a different way, that it allowed it to land in a different perspective. I was listening to a great podcast on this today about how we have all these rich and famous people telling us it doesn't bring any joy to become famous or rich or powerful or whatever, and those of us who haven't experienced that will say, oh no, you're just lying, you just don't know how to appreciate it, until it happens to us and we eventually realize the same thing. But for some reason we aren't able to realize that philosophical wisdom until we've embodied it. And I think that's where breathwork has been super beneficial for me as well, and I really noticed it with clients as well. They'll come to me and say things like, I just really love my partner, or I was able to see the world in a perspective that I'd never seen it before. And it's all these things that we hear all over the internet, and there's memes about them and podcasts on them, but until we're able to embody them in some way, shape or form, usually through our own trial and error views of the world, through our own lived experience, before we can appreciate the importance and value of them. For me, it's been a lot around, understanding the way in which I perceive the world is more important than the world itself and whatever's going on around me. So if I'm living a life where I don't appreciate or find gratitude in certain situations, no matter what they are, uh, then of course I'm going to feel like I'm living a suboptimal life. But if I can um, appreciate things or change my perspective on them, which has taken me a long time to be able to do, then all of a sudden my life becomes far more enjoyable. And it's not like that the external situation has changed. It's just that the the pain and suffering that I'm causing myself of uh, choosing to perceive it in a particular way is what's causing me so much grief and agony. And to be able to step away from that and see that it's just, life is just one consciousness shift away from being really beautiful and enjoyable. That's been really liberating. And I'm sure I'll have my times where I forget that, but uh, that's just life, right? We're here to learn, and I think we often forget that we're so critical on ourselves and our experiences and not doing things perfect the first time, or maybe ignoring our intuition the first time or second time or third time, but to give ourselves grace in that and just see that that's just part of the human experience, and we're here to learn lessons. And maybe it is just about our perspective and how we can do that in a kind and loving way. I've even noticed the way in which I show up in my relationship has changed, because so a huge thing for me recently, and probably the reason why I felt so different, is because I realized uh, the cost of spending time on social media and running an online business and whatnot. I would use the excuse that I've got to be on these platforms because that's how people can find out about the work I do and find out about me and connect with me, and which is to a certain extent true, but it was also pulling me so far out of my individual genius, um, which is maybe an interesting term to use, but that's the one that's coming to mind. But I guess what I mean by that is I'd enter the world of social media with this intention of sharing a particular insight or whatever it may be, or expressing myself in some way, and then I'd get stuck in the loophole um, of being a consumer instead. And all of a sudden, the comparison piece would come up, or I'd feel like my ideas maybe needed some more fine tuning, or maybe they weren't as valuable, or maybe I just forgot. And yeah, it's really been interesting to notice how much the impact of being on social media was influencing me. I think I really first noticed it about a week ago when I was, I was being more conscious of the way I was showing up in the mornings and experiencing my morning routine. And so I started playing, let's just call them affirmations, I guess, on YouTube. And before I got a chance to watch this particular video, it was playing a YouTube advert, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. This is like a Disney movie, and maybe I'm just going to see what this is like because it looks like something I might be interested in watching." And it kind of drew me in, and then all of a sudden it got really, really dark, and I felt myself, my inner voice was telling me, "Hey, you need to stop watching this. This is not beneficial for you to be consuming this sort of um, content because it's going to affect uh, your mental awareness." But I couldn't stop, and it wasn't until I finally managed to push myself to push the skip button to actually start the video that I was supposed to be watching, and I could feel it viscerally, this energetic connection that it was kind of drawing me in, and as soon as I pushed skip, I was pulled back out, and I was like, wow, that was really impacting the way in which I was perceiving the world in that moment. It was all about um, this particular character, this antagonist who was deceiving a family and manipulating them, and and breaking the family unit apart, and almost like a horror movie, I guess, from what I could gather. But yeah, just noticing how that one interaction on social media had influenced my ability to uh, see the world from a particular perspective, and that kind of led me to think, like, how much of my time am I spend watching or consuming content that is actually not beneficial for this life that I desire to live. And it kind of, got me thinking about, we've got these uh, the regrets of the dying, and they're all about not spending enough time with family and spending too much time at work, and um, spending too much time stressing. And I really feel like there's going to be, in my generations and the generations below this there's going to be a regret, that is, I spent too much time on social media, or I spent too much time, watching TV shows on Netflix. It's we call them, like we use them as placeholders, but they end up taking up a lot of our time and energy, and drawing us out of this lived experience of reality. Kind of reminds me of recently, I I accidentally took a far larger dose of plant medicine than I intended. We'll leave it at that. But what I found was that I was really fearful of the fact that it was drawing me out of my body, and I was being pulled into this other dimension, and the whole time all I wanted to do was be in this physical body and be in this physical reality, because at the end of the day, we're only here for a very, very short time. Our life is incredibly finite, and I think because we often perceive it as, looking back at um, when we perceive it in the world of the age we live as a human, which is like, let's say it's, where we live to 80. Some of us live to 100, but let's just say we live to 80. And in a human experience, that sounds like a very long time, but in regards to the world, it's infinitely finite. And I think yeah, I guess we as a society, but me personally, have really, really taken that for granted, that this doesn't last forever, and we have no idea when it's going to last. If we're lucky, we'll live to die of old age, or however it may be, but that's often not how it works, and we always just assume, it's not going to be me, but um, everyone assumes that, and often it is them. Went on a bit of a dark tangent there. But I guess it's just, it's just all these different things that I've been perceiving. Another one of those is my relationship to what it means to live abundantly. And I mean, what I'm realizing is to have a warm, sunlit home with a loving relationship feels incredibly abundant. And yeah, I don't think I've really appreciated until recently the importance of having a home environment that feels so homely. Because we spend so much of our time here, and I really feel that there's far less that I feel like I need from an outside perspective when my home environment feels nourishing. And that's been a big journey for me. When I grew up, I think we'd moved home like 17 or 18 times by the time I was in my 20s. Like, my dad's a developer, and we used to just do houses up or build them and then carry on. And so I guess I never really had that stable foundation, and never really knew the benefit of it until more recently. But I'm really feeling that now, feeling the importance of just having somewhere where I can actually fully land. I spent much of my adult life living in various locations, uh, across the world really. Most memorable was living in an attic in London. But yeah, just noticing the benefit of having a home environment to return to. I remember reading something a while back about how, after the Twin Towers attack, they were able to notice a difference in the way in which the children who witnessed that attack were able to respond to it. So those that had a safe home environment to return to were almost not even affected by with PTSD or any form of traumatic response to the event, because they had a safe place to return to. But those who had to return to in an environment that wasn't welcoming and supportive were severely influenced by the event. And yes, I guess I'm just noticing on just a practical level how beneficial. Not that I'm saying my life is traumatic, but the benefits of having that safe haven to just relax into and feel like I can feel nourished just by being in my own energy and connecting to myself on that level. I think we spend so much of our time trying to please our parents and those around us, and neglect ourselves on such a profound level, and we're not even aware of it. And I'm not saying that that our parents are doing any wrong because of that, but or our friends or family or whatever it may be. But I feel like we neglect ourselves to such an extent by not truly living an embodied life and experiencing life as optimally as we possibly could. And I think we make excuses when we know what it is we really want in order to keep the peace and keep ourselves safe. And that was another realization that is really coming up for me strongly, is not so much in regards to people pleasing, but noticing where it is that I have been keeping myself safe, and maybe there is a vision that I have that has been scary, that I've been not completely allowing myself to look at because it may fail. And now having that differing perspective of seeing, well, that's okay if it fails, but at least I will have tried it. And I think we spend so much of our time just avoiding pain, but ironically causing ourselves more pain. It's something that I really see with breathwork when I'm facilitating. I'll have clients, reflect back to me afterwards, say, I could physically feel this pain of something that I've been holding on to, or not being able to let go of something, or something that I've been ignoring, and noticing how my body has been trying to tell me, but I've been ignoring it. And that's why I love breathwork so much. It just is able to help us, I guess, when coming back to, the talk about plant medicine, how it helped me embody things. And I think breathwork is the same. It allows us to embody some of these more philosophical ideas that maybe we understand rationally through listening to podcasts or reading books or whatever, but to actually be able to practically shift that energy within our body and bring it into and make it a more realized belief on a physical level, as opposed to just some sort of esoteric concept. So it's been a big a big few weeks, and I'm sure everyone's feeling it at the moment. I hope if you are moving through it, that you're able to do so in a way that feels comfortable to you or safe to you. Know that I'm always here to offer support. And I mean, for me, it comes back to the breath. I was joking with someone recently that I think I found my trifecta of supports that I want to offer the world, and the first of those and foremost is always breathwork, and then cacao, and human design. They seem to be the pillars. I think maybe there's one more that's still in the midst of arising, but these systems have just been so beneficial to help me to understand life and move in an embodied way. There's one last concept that I've been noticing that maybe I've understood on a mental level, but not on a practical level, and that's that of abundance. And it comes oddly enough in the form of feathers. I was messaging a friend recently and saying that I hadn't found that many feathers since I left, living in Napier a few years ago. And I went for a walk that day and found a keruru, or a wood pigeon feather. And there was part of me that was like, oh, it's just one. Like, surely there's more of these. Where are the rest of them? And in that moment, I realized that I wasn't truly appreciating the abundance that I'd been offered. I was searching for the next thing to prove that there was a level of abundance there, and later on I went down the road and someone offered me a tray of eggs, and I said, oh no, that's okay, don't worry about that. And again, like, I'm rejecting this level of offerings that the universe is presenting to me, in a physical level. And then I guess the other thing was just noticing, according to human design, we are best to live by our strategy and authority. So my strategy is to wait for the invitation, and my authority is I'm an emotional being according to human design, which means that there's no truth in the now. It's all about waiting for the emotional waves to resolve. And I remember growing up as a kid and feeling so frustrated at myself because I could never make a decision. And it wasn't until I discovered that I was, a few years ago, just discovering and understanding that it's because I'm an emotional type according to the system that all of a sudden everything makes sense. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not stupid, or I'm not able to make decisions. I just need time. And once I understood that, there was a huge level of relief there. But waiting for the invitation is, as much as I knew that that's what I should be doing, I was always trying to initiate things on a subtle level, trying to pretend like I was working around what is correct for me. And so, these lessons have all been really beneficial, and I'm sure I could go on. There's a truckload more of them, but it's exciting. There's big shifts in the air, and I think it's becoming palpable. And so if you're listening to this, and if you're staying in the work and continuing that process of self-development and self-knowledge, and in whatever way that may be, and most importantly, not comparing yourself to anyone else, but just to the version of yourself from yesterday, and even then being gentle, right? Because often I've got clients that come to me and they'll say, oh, I just feel like I haven't progressed and nothing's getting better, and I say to them, like, well, what were you like 5 years ago? Like, oh, this was like, I was like this and I was doing this, and I think we, that allows them to see that there's a level of shift in perspective or changes that maybe they weren't even acknowledging, because we look at it coming back to that full circle moment, back to the length of our lives and our finite experience. We don't give ourselves the time and space to see things manifest and grow on a larger scale, and being able to look at your life 5 years ago and seeing how different you are as an individual to this present moment. I think, for the most part, you'll be really proud of yourself. And it only takes those incremental steps in the right direction to completely shift the path in which we're headed. I love the quote, that if we are walking in a dead straight line for, I don't know, kilometers, 10 kilometers, we're going to end up directly ahead of ourselves. But if we change that direction by just a fraction of a degree, after that 10 kilometers, we're going to end up in a completely different location. I think we can miss the value, or maybe don't even notice the value of that. It's just those small changes that can be the most profound when they're compounded over time. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it today. Really appreciate you joining me, and if you've got any comments or questions, I really appreciate it if you would share this with someone that may align with, or tap the like button and subscribe, just so I can support this channel to grow and support the algorithm to see what I'm up to, and just help me to spread what I perceive as truth in this current reality. Yeah, kia ora.